there are going to be a number of stage changes this evening, so just kind of bear with us as we adjust our set here. And I did forget to make one announcement. If you have a cell phone, if you could set it to silent or something like that so that we don't interrupt our performers and stuff, that would be wonderful. Next, Jay Nathan is going to come up and tell us about the holly and the ivy.
About the little old hermit. Now, in case you don't know what a hermit is, it's someone that lives away from villages and people, all by themselves. And the only time they come and get around people is if they have to go to town to get supplies. Well, many, many years ago, there was a little old hermit. He lived in Germany, and in a forest called the Black Forest. And right next to his cottage was an old ski trail. But nobody ever used it anymore because it was a very, very, very dangerous one. And they didn't want to get hurt. Well, now this hermit wasn't any different than other hermits, except for one thing. He had the most beautiful nativity scene in his living room. But it was so big, it took up half of the floor in his living room. And not only that, but it had a lot of live things in it, growing things in the nativity scene. There was a little miniature pine tree. The grass on the ground was real. And they had the most beautiful climbing rows that went way to the top of the door. And between the pine tree and the roses, oh, there was such a wonderful aroma in that cottage. Well, now this little hermit, he would would sit in front of his nativity scene, be in his rocking chair, and his old faithful big dog would be sleeping at his feet. And he'd look at the nativity scene, and first he'd think about Mary and Joseph. What a hard trip they must have taken to go to Bethlehem. And then he'd think about the Roman emperor. He must have been real powerful because he could command all his people that his ancestors were born in this town to come back and sign in. Because you see, a kingdom that thought that in those days was as big as the people that he ruled. And the more people that came and signed their name, the bigger his kingdom. Then he would think about the innkeeper. What a wise man he was. He knew that his inn was no place for a baby to be born. But he told him about the warm and cozy stable that he had. Then he'd think about Joseph. Nobody ever wrote about Joseph. What did Joseph do when Mary gave birth to the baby? Well, he would think about it and all, but he never could come to an answer. So one day, a famous magician came to town, and he came skiing down the old abandoned ski trail. He was an expert skier, and he was going to show him he could do it, but he couldn't. He got near the cottage of the little old hermit, and he lost his balance, and he fell. And he laid there until he felt like he was strong enough to get up. Well, he tried to get up. Oh, he had sprained his right arm. And to a magician, that was disaster. But you see, the next week, he was supposed to perform his famous tricks in front of the emperor. But without his right arm, he couldn't do the tricks that he was famous for. So he laid there with his eyes closed, wondering, what am I going to do? When he heard a noise, he opened his eyes and he looked up. And there was the little old hermit and his big dog. And the little old hermit took the skis off the magician and helped him up and invited him into his cottage, because there he could really examine his arm and see what was wrong. So they went into the cottage, and immediately the magician's eyes saw the beautiful nativity scene, and he was just about to ask the hermit why he still had the nativity scene in. After all, it was the middle of January. But you see, the hermit never took his nativity scene down. He kept it up all year long, and not once did he take it down. Well, the magician was about to ask him, and then he smelled the beautiful aroma of the pine tree and the roses. But then the hermit took off the magician's shirt very carefully and looked at the arm. So he went to the pine tree in his nativity scene and he broke off a little twig. He went to the roses, took a beautiful rosebud, and he took the two things together and made an ointment. And they put that ointment on the magician's arm. And to his amazement, the pain was all gone. And his arm was just as good as new. Well, the little old hermit invited the magician to stay all night because it was getting dark and it was a long way down to the village. And also, he had just gotten over a bad fall. So the magician agreed. He stayed that night. And next morning, he woke up to the delicious smell of bacon sizzling and coffee. And as they were eating, he asked the hermit, he says, "What can I do to repay you for all your hospitality?" And the hermit said, every time you think of me, say a prayer to baby Jesus for someone who is in need. Well, the magician thought that's the least he could do. So he agreed to do it. And then he got ready to leave. He got his ski clothes on, he got his skis, and he thanked the little old hermit again for his hospitality. And he set out on the ski trail, never expecting to see the hermit again. And soon he was concentrating on the trail and going down to the village. Well, the little old hermit went back to his rocking chair in front of the nativity scene like he always did. And his dog was at his feet and fell asleep. And soon the little old hermit fell asleep. And he dreamt. And in his dream, he dreamt that everything disappeared in his nativity scene. The baby Jesus and Mary and Joseph. And instead he saw Mary and Joseph sitting on a blanket on the floor. Mary whispered something to Joseph. And Joseph took Mary's hand in both of his. And then there was two bright figures came into his dream and just blinded the poor hermit. He couldn't see anything. And then when the hermit gained his sight again, the scene had changed again, and here was Mary and Joseph kneeling in silent adoration in front of the baby in the manger. Well, the big old dog growled in his sleep, and the hermit woke with a start. And he looked at his nativity scene, and his heart just filled with joy. Oh, he was so elated. He said, now he knew what Joseph did to comfort Mary when she had the baby Jesus. Joseph held her hand. And so he was so fascinated with what he thought was a startling discovery that he decided he was going to make his own new Christmas play. He was going to make the figures of Mary and Joseph holding hands, and at Christmas Eve, he would put Mary and Joseph in the shade on the blanket. And when midnight, when the bells in the village rang, announcing that Christmas Day was here, he would change it and put the baby Jesus in the manger with Mary and Joseph kneeling in silent adoration. Well, he was so excited about it that he had to go into the village to get some supplies, and he saw some friends of his. And he told them his story, just what he was going to do the next Christmas Eve. But his friend laughed. He thought it was funny. He just laughed and laughed, and he told all the villagers, and the villagers, they laughed, and they made so much fun of the little old hermit. Well, weeks went by, months went by. Soon it was the Christmas season again. And the whole town was putting up the most beautiful decorations. Every store window, every house, this was going to be a special Christmas. You see, the Burgermeister, that's the name of what they gave the mayor in those days, the Burgermeister had hired the world-famous magician to come and put on a show, and on Christmas afternoon. And it was going to be free, because this was the Burgermeister's Christmas present to his people. So they were really decorating it real big. Now, the magician had arrived 2 days earlier, but nobody knew that. And he had gone out for supper, and when he came back, he was going to go up to his room. But he just stood back in the shadows where nobody could see him, and to look at all the beautiful decorations. And while he was standing there, one of the villagers happened to stop right in front of the doorway, and he thought about the hermit's story. And he thought, that's going to be good for a laugh. So he called all his friends in to gather around and told them what the hermit was going to do Christmas Eve. Well, they laughed and made fun of him. And the magician stood back there and his heart just broke. Because you see, this was a magician that the hermit helped before. And all he could think of was pictured the nativity scene, the beautiful smell, and how he worked that magic ointment that seemed to perform a miracle. Well, he thought, what can I do to make them stop laughing at the little old hermit? Well, he went up to his room and he thought, he thought, and he thought, and he thought. He couldn't think of what he could do. Then he had a bright idea. He says, I'm going to go up to that hermit and I'm going to beg him to bring his figures down to my show. And then as a climax to my magic show, he was going to perform the story just as the hermit told it. Because after all, if a world-famous magician thought that Joseph held Mary's hand, why should they make fun of the hermit? So he practiced it far into the night, and it was late when he finally went to sleep. And when he woke the next day, he was upset, because he slept late in the day. And he knew that if he left at that time, he wouldn't get to the house before the dark. Well, but he determined, he says, that hermit helped me, I'm going to carry out my plan. So he got his ski clothes on, and he got his skis, and he took off. And it was dark before he got to the hermit's cottage. But the moon was so big and bright that he could see. He could see his way to the cottage. And he was just about ready to knock on the door, and he heard the big dog whimpering very softly inside. Well, he opened the door, and there was the little old hermit, slumped over in his chair. The magician happened to look at the nativity scene and saw that Mary and Joseph were sitting on the blanket. And he knew that the hermit would not see his play played out. Very tenderly, he lifted the hermit up and laid him on a cot in front of the nativity scene. And then bells in the village rang, announcing that Christmas Day was here. And there was a bright light that filled the whole cottage. And when the bright light went away, the magician looked at the nativity scene, and there was Mary and Joseph kneeling in silent adoration in front of the baby in the manger.
Thank you, Hazel. The next group that you're going to see is Alexa Espinoza is going to come up and sing Season of Hope, accompanied by her father, Roger. Next, we're going to have Ava Espinoza and also Daniela Spadaro. They're going to come up. They're going to sing a duet. They're going to sing "Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow."
Oh, the weather outside is frightful, but the fire is so delightful. And since we got nowhere to go, let us know, let us know, let us know. It doesn't show signs of stopping, and our bras will go like a rocket. And the lights turn way down low. Let us know, let us know, let us know. When you finally kiss goodnight, I'll be going out in the storm. But if you hurry, hold me tight. All the way home I'll be warm. And the body's slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbying. And as long as you love me so, let us know, let us know, let us know. When we finally kiss goodnight, how I hate going out in the storm. But if you hurry, hold me tight. All the way home I'll be warm. When we finally slowly dying, and my dear, we're still goodbying. And as long as you love me so, let us know, let us know, let us know.
Thank you, girl. Nice job. Next, Michael Long is going to come up.